Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I especially want to thank the Wagner School for hosting us and Secretary Duncan for joining us, for his warm introduction, and for his extraordinary leadership. New York State is at a critical turning point in our work to ensure an excellent education for every student. We're poised to lead the country. It is within our grasp. And together, we have the potential to make a difference for every child in this state. I became an educator. I became a teacher for a simple reason. I know firsthand that school can make the difference between hope and despair in children's lives. I know firsthand that amazing teachers can save children's lives because my teacher, Mr. Osterweil, my teacher in 4th, 5th, 6th grade at PS 276 in Canarsie, saved my life. His classroom saved my life. The assignments we did in his class, the activities we did in his class, saved my life. My mother passed away when I was 8, October of 4th grade. And I lived with my father, who at the time had undiagnosed Alzheimer's disease. It was just the two of us in the house. And every day, what was going to happen at home was unpredictable. It was scary. But school was this amazing place where we were learning every day. In Mr. Osterweil's class, we read the New York Times every morning. We did productions of Midsummer Night's Dream and Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. We went to the Museum of Natural History, went to the Brooklyn Academy of Music. He opened up a world beyond Canarsie to me, and because of that, I was able to make it through that period as my father's health declined and he passed away when I was 12. Through all that period, the thing that saved me was Mr. Osterweil's class. And so in my career as a teacher, as a principal, and now as a policymaker, what drives me each day, the goal for me each day, is to try to make possible for every child in the state what Mr. Osterweil made possible for me. To make possible for every child in the state an education that is at once challenging and nurturing, at once supportive and opportunity creating. That's what I want for all New York children, but sometimes politics gets in the way. I've always tried in my job to separate the politics from the substance of the issues in education, to focus on instruction, to focus on teaching and learning, to focus on practice, to focus on the evidence, and most importantly, on outcomes for students. These days, however, politics in New York seems to be entirely about education, and it's hard to find agreement not just on policy, but on the facts. And it's also hard to see where everyone stands. We have some Republicans and business leaders who support high standards and others who don't. We have some Democrats and civil rights leaders who support student-focused evaluations for teachers and principals, and some who don't. We have some folks who align themselves with unions and others who keep their distance from unions. We have some who demand accountability and others who fight it. And often those who have the most at stake are not even in the fight at all. Sometimes these debates focus on real issues, and there are honest disagreements that can be worked through to lead to productive compromise. But sometimes the conversation devolves into personal attacks, which should have no place in our open civic discourse. Civility and respect should be the price of admission in public debate. Its opposite is not only inappropriate, but it has the disheartening effect of turning off the very people we serve, the children, the parents, the taxpayers of the state. It's their voices that matter. It's their interests that we must represent, not our own. And when the noise level rises, healthy engagement declines, and the likelihood of achieving consensus drops. I saw that firsthand last fall in a series of public forums across the state. People were angry, people were frustrated, people didn't feel heard, and there was a lot of misinformation. I saw it happen again this winter when the State Teachers Union voiced anxiety about the new evaluation system and accountability. And at times, the union leadership even appeared to oppose higher standards for teaching and learning, even though they had joined us in advocating for those standards and securing funding to support them. This noise culminated last weekend in a no-confidence vote in me by the delegates to the State Teachers Union and the defeat of the State Teachers Union President Dick Iannuzzi. Now, while I've had differences with President Iannuzzi, I very much respect his career as a teacher. He was a hardworking teacher and union leader. I respect him, and I look forward to working with his successor. We've also had principals and superintendents around the state, some principals, some superintendents, who've also expressed concern about the pace at which we're moving. They've said we're going too fast and that we're trying to do too much. We've heard legislators, longtime supporters of education reform, react to the noise by calling for slowing down. And over the last few weeks, we've even seen a small but meaningful percentage of parents and students opt out of the state test, even though in so doing, they lose the opportunity for themselves and for their teachers and for their schools to understand how they are doing against common benchmarks towards college and career readiness. On a more local level, you can see the noise anytime you read down to the comment section on newspaper articles about education issues. You can be confident that you will see things that are harsh and inappropriate and that undermine reasonable dialogue. Partly this is New York's character. New Yorkers have deeply held beliefs, and we are not hesitant to fight for those deeply held beliefs. It's one of the things that makes us great. But that doesn't justify the degrading rhetoric that increasingly fills our airwaves and our newspapers. Every confrontation does not need to end in one side declaring victory and the other retreating in defeat. We can achieve shared victories in public education. There should be more acknowledgement of the facts and more acknowledgement of our common aspirations, because there really is only one thing that counts, and that is our outcomes for students. No matter where we stand on the policy or political spectrum, our job is to get results in the classroom and to graduate every student ready for the next step, whether that's post-secondary education or the world of work. We may differ on how to get there. We may differ on what works best. We may differ on the pace of change, but the goal is beyond the debate. The goal of preparing all of our children for success in the future, for success in college, careers, and life, is beyond debate. So today I'm going to try not to add to the noise, but to turn the page and to talk about how New York can move forward and affirm our national leadership in public education. There are three basic issues on which we should all be able to agree. The first is that despite all of our progress, New York State is not yet where it needs to be. Without question, New York has some excellent schools and districts. From high school graduation rates to advanced placement course participation to college enrollment, our students are learning more and doing better today than they were 10 years ago or even 4 years ago. And that is progress worth celebrating. But even as we take pride in that progress, we must acknowledge that we can and must do better. 1 in 4 New York State students starts high school and doesn't graduate 4 years later. As the secretary said, where are those 25% of students going? Only about 1/3 of the students who do graduate ready for college level work. That's why so many of them arrive at our community colleges and must take remedial courses. A majority of community college students in the state are required to take those remedial courses, and we should call them what they are: high school classes for which families pay college prices. As the secretary said, in New York City, 75 to 80% of the students at the community colleges are required to take remedial courses. Imagine entering your college course and looking around the room and knowing that 80% of the students are going to have to go down the hall to the high school class. And needless to say, all of those facts are worse for our students of color, our students in poverty, our English language learners, and our students with disabilities. And New York isn't alone in this respect. Whether you look at the National NAEP assessment or the PISA International Assessment or state assessments or graduation rates, what is clear is that we must do better. America needs to get better faster, or we will have many, many young people unprepared for the 21st century global economy. The second area of agreement should be in favor of high standards. Nobody can honestly argue that we're better off keeping our standards low and deluding ourselves and our children into believing they're ready for college and the world of work when we know they aren't. Employers all across the state will tell you that many students who come out of high school struggle to communicate effectively. College professors will tell you that many of the students who arrive on campus are not able to write effectively, not able to write an effective argument with evidence to support their claims. To meet this challenge, the Board of Regents adopted in 2010 the Common Core, college and career-ready standards developed by asking college professors, business leaders, and accomplished teachers from across the country, what is it that students need to know and be able to do at every grade level in order to be prepared for college and career success? Since 2010, we've directed more than $500 million in Race to the Top funds to be spent in districts in support of the implementation of those standards. We've trained professional development teams in every region of the state and every large district in the state. We've created a free voluntary curriculum for English language arts and math that's been downloaded over 6.2 million times by educators in New York State and around the country. And we've put instructional videos on our website that illustrate what the Common Core looks like in action in classrooms all around the state. Countless teachers have bravely and creatively stepped up, adopting new curricula, new lesson plans, and redesigning instruction to promote critical thinking and problem solving rather than rote memorization. Whether in local newspapers or on our website engageny.org or on the NEA and AFT website, you can read countless stories of teachers who are making the Common Core happen for their kids in their classrooms. But it's a huge change, and no one thought for a moment it would be easy. But the truth is that the change is underway in classrooms all across the state. I've seen it firsthand. I've been in more than 60 schools since September, all across the state, watching Common Core instruction in action. A teacher in Cooperstown, home of the Baseball Hall of Fame, which I recommend that you visit. In Cooperstown, watching a teacher teaching math problem solving, helping her elementary school students use mixed numbers to solve subtraction problems, and listening to them explain where are the times when you would need to use mixed numbers to solve a problem. A classroom in Harlem where two students were discussing the evidence in the text Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, and Watson's Go to Birmingham, and comparing the themes across those two texts with evidence. Now, of course, in a system as decentralized as ours, there is variety to how this change is working. There's no question that the road has been bumpier for some than for others. We have 700 school districts in New York, and implementation has been uneven across those 700 districts. But that's no reason to stop. We teach our children to meet failure and challenge with renewed effort. As adults, we must do the same. The third issue that unites us is accountability for student results. We can debate the best way to hold ourselves accountable. And time will tell if our current measures, the state tests, the Regents exams, graduation rates, and student portfolios are the right best measures to tell us where our students are on the trajectory to college and career readiness. But the idea that we don't need accountability is unacceptable. It's an abdication of responsibility. We've been hired to educate the children of New York State, all children, no matter how poor, no matter how challenged, no matter how difficult their home life. Every single child in New York deserves an effective education, and parents and taxpayers who've hired us have the right to know whether or not we are getting the job done. And if New York is not getting the job done, then I am accountable. We are all accountable. That's the bargain at the heart of public education. Parents trust us with their children. And the people of the state trust us with billions and billions of their tax dollars. And what they ask in return is that we deliver results and prove it. And that gets to the two issues that are really at the heart of what the Secretary referred to as the drama here in New York in recent months. The first is testing, and the second is evaluation. Many New York parents have expressed frustration with testing, and I get where they're coming from. Testing is not teaching. Testing is not the point of education. Testing does not, in and of itself, make children smarter. It just tells us where we are so we can get better. Unfortunately, the facts around testing seem to get lost. First, the new Common Core tests are a better reflection of the skills students need to succeed in college and careers. They rely less on multiple choice and require students to write more. They ask students to critically analyze challenging texts. And they ask students to apply their math skills to real-world problems. They are better tests. Not perfect, but better tests. Second, New York State has not added any new tests since adopting the Common Core standards. In fact, we've made every effort to simultaneously improve our tests and reduce testing time. Today, the total testing time for state tests accounts for less than 1% of instructional time. I want to say that again. I mentioned earlier the misinformation that sometimes clouds the conversation. Since 2010, New York State has not added any new state tests, and total testing time accounts for less than 1% of total instructional time. We also want to discourage test prep, which takes time away from learning. The best preparation for testing is good teaching. So let me say here and now, as loudly and clearly as possible, stop doing rote, standardized test prep. Stop. Focus on good teaching, on rich instruction. Recently, the governor and the legislature approved a cap on test prep. I salute that step. But at the end of the day, principals and teachers make a decision each day about how to focus their instructional time. And they must focus it on the kinds of rich activities that will ensure student success with respect to the Common Core. Principals and superintendents have to evaluate their local tests. They have to evaluate, are these useful? Are they informing instruction, or are they unnecessary? And they have to justify them to their parents. And that brings us to the second issue around accountability. Some teachers and principals are pushing back on evaluation, even though New York has barely just begun to implement the evaluation process that was adopted into law in 2010, and that all districts and unions in the state agreed to support. Moreover, no teachers or principals have faced negative consequences from the evaluation system. The evaluation system has 3 parts. 20% is based on state tests, 20% is based on local assessments, 60% is based on observations and feedback from parents and students. Again, 60% has nothing to do with assessments. So anyone who says that evaluation is all about test scores is wrong. They're misinforming people to stir up fear and anxiety among teachers and parents, and that is having a negative effect on students. Right now, as we speak, we have only 1 year of test results under the new Common Core standards. We haven't identified any new schools for intervention based on those results. Not a single teacher or principal has faced negative consequences as a result of the new standards. No one has been fired through the process created under the new evaluation law. And there won't be consequences under the new evaluation law until new results come in next year, and then districts most likely will not act until summer of 2015, a full 5 years after the standards were adopted. And last year in New York, the first year of statewide implementation of the evaluation system, just 1% of teachers were identified as ineffective, the bottom category in our evaluation system. 1%. And it takes 2 years of being ineffective, despite an improvement plan, in order to begin a dismissal process. The bottom line is that 1% of teachers could face dismissal proceedings from our evaluation system. In 2015, 5 years after the adoption of the law. So anyone who says evaluation is all about firing teachers is deliberately misrepresenting the facts. For the vast majority of teachers, more than 99% of teachers, the evaluation system is just about support and getting better for the sake of students. Now, the work of raising standards for teaching and learning is work that we launched together, not just the state, but districts, unions, teachers, the legislature, the governor, all with the support of the federal government. Everyone had a voice. It has been an open and transparent process, and we've all known about it for years. But for this to actually work and to make a difference in the lives of students, local education leaders must implement these changes thoughtfully, consistently, and fairly. Local leaders set budgets and priorities. Local leaders dedicate time and money to professional development. Local leaders choose curriculum. Local leaders track results, and they manage school schedules to allow time for planning and collaboration and to create a culture of continuous improvement. We have several talented local superintendents from across the state who are here with us today, representing the 700 district leaders across this state charged with delivering on the promise of the Common Core. The state can help with funding. We can provide guidance and highlight best practices. We can offer flexibility when it is in the best interest of students. And we can seek relief from Washington where it makes sense. And we are grateful to Secretary Duncan, the U.S. Department of Education, for giving us the flexibility to get this right. Now, there's been a lot of talk about rushed implementation of the Common Core. Some have said it is unfair to hold ourselves accountable for meeting new standards while teachers are still adjusting to the new curriculum and new lesson plans. Some have proposed a delay of 2 or 3 years with no consequences for teachers or principals when students aren't making progress. The Board of Regents established a work group that looked at Common Core implementation and made recommendations for adjustments and proposed that rather than delay student-focused evaluations for teachers and principals, we should add additional mechanisms to ensure fairness. The governor convened a panel to consider the issue of Common Core implementation. They came back with recommendations. And despite evidence that implementation is uneven across the state, that there are places where implementation has gone poorly, nonetheless, their recommendation was rightly that we need to stay on track, stay on schedule in raising standards for our students. But they listened, and we continue to listen. And we'll continue to discuss with the Board of Regents, the governor, the legislature, and teachers and administrators across the state how to best move forward fairly and thoughtfully. But we are not going backwards. We are not retreating. New York is moving forward with a common belief in the power of great teachers to transform students' lives, the power of great teachers to make college and career success possible for students, and a commitment, a shared commitment, to do everything in our power to put an effective teacher in every classroom in the state. And that requires real and authentic accountability that recognizes, celebrates, honors our best teachers, and lifts and strengthens the entire profession. Nothing else we do is more important. So I hope that all of us, administrators, educators, parents, and unions, can lay down our swords, soften the rhetoric, put aside the politics, and come together for the sake of our children. It is time to rebuild the trust and mutual respect required to collaborate at scale on something as challenging as raising standards for teaching and learning all across the state. It's time to stop stoking the fires of fear and start expressing the confidence and optimism that common sense standards offer us. To our students, New York offers the promise of an education that truly prepares them for college, work, and life. Included in that promise is a commitment to tell the truth to students about how well students are prepared and what they need to do to succeed. For our teachers, we have many teachers in the room. For our teachers, we offer you a path to respect and recognition that you rightly crave and justly deserve. Instead of feeling blamed for our educational shortcomings, we want teachers to feel empowered to fix them. Recently, Secretary Duncan called for a new era of teacher leadership in order to strengthen the teaching profession. New York will be the first state to answer that call. Just on Tuesday, I was in Greece, New York, a district that's using Race to the Top funds to develop a career ladder for teachers. The district and the union have worked together to select master teachers who coach and mentor and support their colleagues. I was inspired in hearing about the conversations that are happening across their schools as those master teachers help their colleagues come to learn the Common Core standards and bring them to life for their students in classrooms. Those conversations affirmed for me what I have always known, that there is no educational challenge in New York State that is beyond the reach of our educators, our schools, our parents, and our students. But it will require more of all of us. Schools of education will need to rethink how they train teachers. Elected officials must take seriously the responsibility for fully and equitably funding our schools. I'm grateful to the governor and the legislature for the additional funding for schools in the next year. Administrators will need to use that money to give teachers the training and support that they need. The union leadership at the state and local level needs to continue to honor its commitment to accountability and reform. We can't do this without them, and we certainly can't do this in a climate of open hostility. It has to end. Teachers themselves need to embrace a system of accountability instead of fearing it, because they have very little to fear and much, much more to gain. And finally, we at the state level and our colleagues at the federal level need to own up to the unintended consequences of our policies, from narrowing of the curriculum to the overemphasis on testing and test prep. We can and must minimize test prep and the stress that it places on students and teachers. I worked in schools where collaboration and trust were central to the school culture and where students had a well-balanced, rich curriculum. Testing was seen as a diagnostic tool, not an end in itself. It didn't impede learning or overwhelm children, and teachers valued the feedback. Still, I accept responsibility for state policies and the impact that they have had, both positive and negative. I know implementation has not gone perfectly, and there is more that we can do at the state level, which is why today I want to announce 3 initiatives to further support the transition. The first is a $16 million grant program called Teaching is the Core. The goal is to reduce local testing by evaluating which ones are needed and which ones aren't. I don't want New York students spending 1 minute longer than absolutely necessary on testing. The second is a plan to borrow classroom teachers from across the state to help us shape the state's curriculum and instruction supports around the Common Core. We want to find teachers who are doing it well so that they can help their colleagues across New York make this transition. We'll pay their salaries for a year so there is no cost to districts. The third is really a challenge to local administrators and local union leaders to build time into school schedules for more collaboration and high-quality professional development. Student learning is our bottom line. And that means professional development can't be an optional luxury. It's essential for the sake of our students. This is a historic moment, and we have in New York the opportunity to lead the whole country. I've never been more confident because I know there are tens of thousands of smart and dedicated teachers across this state that share Mr. Osterweil's passion and commitment. They're devoted to their students and willing to do whatever it takes to help them get over the bar we've set for ourselves. I know there are millions of parents across this state who want only the best for their children and who are willing to be good partners with their children's teachers in meeting higher goals. There are elected officials across New York who don't want to take sides among the adults fighting over reform. They just want to be on the side of children and what's best for them. I also know that even my most ardent critics in the teachers union share the goal of providing the best education possible to every child in New York State. And just because we don't agree on everything doesn't make us enemies. One of the gifts my mother gave me when I was very little was that she taught me to look for the good in everyone. I hope that we can see the good in each other and begin to move forward together, because the alternative is unthinkable. Children, our children, have been waiting too long for the education they desperately need, while the adults have been paralyzed by the politics of education. We can't get back a single day stolen from our children because we could not find common ground. We all have to own that, accept responsibility for every missed opportunity, And that means we have to resolve, here and now, not to let another day go by where we are arguing about process instead of delivering an effective education to every child. Not another day should go by when we are more concerned with making ourselves look good and making others look bad, because we all look bad and nothing good comes of it. I know that this work is difficult for some. I know that this work is scary for some. But anything worthwhile, anything worth doing, is going to be difficult and scary sometimes. It's been difficult for me as well. I didn't seek or invite the antagonism or the acrimony, but it's there and it's real, and I don't dismiss it. I just hope that we are all a little bit stronger for it, a little bit chastened by the recent battles. I hope we're all a little bit humbler and a little bit more understanding of each other's point of view. And hopefully, we're all a little bit smarter and a little bit more able to find today's solutions to yesterday's battles. Together, we have a lot of work to do. Together, we have a lot of work to do to deliver on the promise of an effective education for every child. Together, we have a lot of work to do to deliver on the promise of an effective education for every child, regardless of race, or zip code, or poverty, or disability, or language spoken at home. We have a lot of work to do. Let's get to it. Thank you.